For decades, the whole conversation about family planning has really centered on one big idea: the mother's biological clock. But what if that's only half the story? We're about to dive into some truly groundbreaking science that is completely rewriting the rules on genetic risk, and it all comes down to something most of us haven't really thought about: a father's age.
It's such a simple question, right? Just flipping a concept we all think we know. But let me tell you, the answer is anything but simple. And it has these massive implications for how we understand the health conditions that get passed down through generations. So, for a long, long time, scientists and doctors have noticed this link, this connection between an older father and certain health risks in his kids. It was like a statistical ghost in the data. They could see the pattern, but they just couldn't explain how or why it was happening. And this is why it matters so much. We're not talking about minor things here. The data has consistently shown that with higher paternal age, there are increased rates of autism, all sorts of developmental disorders, and even some specific cancers in children. So we knew the what, but the why, well, that was a huge, frustrating puzzle.
For years, really, the best guess we had was this thing called the random mutation theory. The logic was pretty straightforward. As a man gets older, the stem cells that make sperm just keep dividing over and over and over, and with every single division, there's a tiny chance of a mistake, like a typo in the DNA. The idea was that over a lifetime, these typos just kind of build up. It made sense, but it never felt like it was the whole story.
And this right here shows you the huge shift in thinking. The old assumption was passive. It was just a slow, random pileup of errors. But the new finding? Wow. It's active. It's almost aggressive. This isn't just about random chance anymore. It's about a biological competition, a hostile takeover happening right inside the body. Which brings us to the big breakthrough. Researchers have found this totally new mechanism, and they gave it a pretty unforgettable name: selfish sperm. Yeah, this isn't just about mutations happening. It's about mutations that have an agenda. So here's the key. A selfish mutation is not just a random mistake. It is a very specific type of DNA change that gives the sperm stem cell that carries it a kind of superpower. It allows that single cell to start dividing and making copies of itself way faster than its healthy neighbors, even though that genetic code it's passing on could be harmful to a child. Here's a perfect way to picture it. Think of the male reproductive system as a factory, just constantly churning out sperm. Most of the machines are working fine, but then one machine develops a fault. That's our mutation. But this isn't just any fault. This particular fault also gives the machine the weird ability to build copies of itself. Pretty soon, these faulty machines start to outnumber the good ones, and the factory's overall output gets more and more compromised. Now, this isn't just some clever theory. It is backed up by some incredibly powerful, large-scale data. So let's get into the hard numbers, because this is where it gets really compelling. The researchers on this, they didn't mess around. They analyzed over 100,000 individual sperm cells from men all the way from age 20 up to 70. And they used this incredible technology called ultra-deep single-cell sequencing. Think of it like putting the DNA of every single sperm cell under an ultra-powerful microscope. It gave them a look at what's going on that we've just never had before. So what did they find? Get this. In men who were in their early 30s, about 1 out of every 50 sperm cells carried one of these potentially harmful selfish mutations. So that's a rate of 2%. But watch what happens with age. By the time a man gets to his 70s, that number jumps dramatically. It's not 1 in 50 anymore. It is now 1 in 20. That's a 5% rate. The factory is being taken over. Seeing it like this on a chart just drives it home. Now, going from 2% to 5% might not sound like a huge number, but hold on, that's a 150% increase in the proportion of sperm that are carrying these mutations. This kind of exponential growth is solid proof that this is not a random process. It is a competitive takeover happening in real time. Okay, so the science is absolutely fascinating, but what does it actually mean for real people who are planning to start a family? Well, the implications are immediate, and they are pretty significant. This quote from the research paper, it really just says it all. For so long, all the focus has been on maternal age. This new science forces a complete paradigm shift. It makes it crystal clear that these conversations about genetic risk have to be way more balanced. So what are the big takeaways here for, say, genetic counseling? First, yeah, sperm are well protected from a lot of things, but they are not immune to aging. Second, the engine driving these mutations isn't just chance, it's biological competition. And this isn't some vague concept. Scientists have already found over 40 specific genes that can trigger this selfish growth. The bottom line is, a father's age is a major risk factor that, frankly, we've been underestimating for way too long. This discovery, it really just opens up a whole new chapter. It answers one massive question, but of course, it raises a bunch of new ones and points us toward a future where we can be so much more proactive about the health of our families. So, what's next on the list? Well, step one is more research. We need to figure out if things like lifestyle or a person's individual genetics make them more or less susceptible. This could lead right into step two, new clinical tools, like developing screening tests for men as a routine part of family planning. And finally, step three, all of this knowledge needs to get out there. We need to educate the public so everyone understands that the biological clock really does tick for both parents. And that leaves us with this one big provocative thought to chew on. As this science continues to develop, are we going to see a future where genetic screening for fathers becomes just as normal, just as standard as the prenatal tests we have today? It's a question that doesn't just challenge our science, but our entire approach to building healthy families.